She has an
Oh.
like the entire Well, let's just take a picture.
If there's
Might get a little salty.
That was my like whole week of stress was just for that one thing. I'm alright. That was.
Caraway would probably be best.
Caraway. I just randomly picked one.
Is the salt and the sugar both have a, they get funny.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with a question. Well, a couple actually. How many of you own an Apple product? Any Apple product? Okay. How many of you have ever owned an Apple product? Any of your hands, maybe? Okay. How many of you store information on those products? Photos, social security number, contacts, location. Okay, so a majority of you own an Apple product, keep something important on it. Well, another person who owned an Apple product is someone named Syed Rizwan Farouk. And that name probably doesn't ring a bell to you, but in December of 2015, Farouk and his wife walked into the San Bernardino Health Center during a Christmas party and shot and killed 14 people and left 22 injured. So this happened a while ago, but it's still a problem that affects us today. So they left behind, after an FBI shootout, so that's that photo up there is the FBI shootout, they left behind hundreds of weapons. They left behind bombs, guns, lots of things, and they left behind 3 cell phones. 2 of those cell phones were smashed, like on purpose, and 1 iPhone 5C was left behind. So, like us, he used this iPhone to communicate. Now the difference was that this iPhone, like most of ours, was protected with a 4-digit passcode. But because the phone was issued by the county, which is where he worked, it was his Christmas party that he went to, after 10 failed attempts of trying the password, the phone went into factory reset mode, or it would if the 10 failed attempts had happened. And factory reset mode means, think of how you get your phone when you first get it, right? You turn it on, it does a little like hello, and there's nothing on it. That's what the phone would basically automatically set itself into. So because this event was so huge, the FBI enters. And so in comes the FBI, and they go up to the county and they say, hey, like, unlock this phone for us. It could have potential contact numbers for other people because him and his wife were involved with ISIS, which they found out through further investigation. It could have the locations of the next mass shooting in the United States. And the county actually couldn't unlock the phone. They don't have the password. That just doesn't, like, it doesn't work like that. And so, but they could reset his iCloud. And so iCloud is a software that Apple uses that lets users back up their device onto like a separate server somewhere in the United States. And it basically gives you like a second set of data of your phone. And so they get into this iCloud, they reset the iPhone iCloud account, and they open it up, and the phone actually hadn't been backed up since October. So there was 3 months of information missing that they had to try and find. And so they go to Apple, and they say, Apple, can you unlock the phone for us? Because Tim Cook, who is the CEO, that's Tim Cook up there, who's the CEO of Apple at the time, was basically like in very good communication with the government. They'd helped them before with unlocking previous devices. And so they gave them all the instructions that they could give them without compromising the security network of Apple. And so what they did is that they told him to plug the phone into his home computer, and that should automatically start to back it up. But because they had reset the iCloud account, you can't back up a phone without typing in the 4-digit passcode. So basically, the FBI sat with this phone that could stop the death of hundreds or tens or who knows how many Americans, and no way to get in it. And so Apple gets a request from the FBI to create this thing called the Government Operating System, or GovOS. Think of like iOS for your phone, it's called GovOS. And what this would do is that it would unencrypt the software that creates iOS and allow the government to get into the phone. And so Apple denied this request, saying we can't just unencrypt our software. I'll get into encryption in a second, but we can't just unencrypt our software. It would put millions in jeopardy. And so they had a huge back and forth. Apple actually shut down, according to Time Magazine, 13 lawsuits from the FBI requesting them to create this operating system. And so why not help the FBI? Well, think of what you store on your phone or any Apple device. You store anything from your name, address, location, your online identification, health information, income, cultural profiles. So you store everything on your phone. Most of us probably have your location shared with someone. You might have your social security number somewhere on your phone. You have your address. You have the address of other people. So much sits on our phone. And so what Apple does, and they're actually really famous for this, is that they encrypt all this data so that no one has access to it. And so encryption is, by like Webster dictionary definition, converting data into code to prevent unwanted and unauthorized access. And so this encrypted code isn't just zeros and ones that anyone with like a binary translator can read. It takes this information and makes it look like this. So I can't read that, you can't read that. Steve Jobs, when he was alive, actually didn't even have access to the code that is encrypted. So no one can read this code, and that's how Apple currently stores all of our data. And that's how Apple currently stores all of its software. And so Apple's like very famous for this thing that they actually offered $1 million to any person that could hack into an iPhone, like a locked iPhone, and no one in the world could hack into it. They did not give away $1 million. And so Apple's really famous for having this really strong security system and protecting all of our data really well. And so if they were to unlock it for the FBI, they would have to unencrypt the data, create what's called like a back door for the FBI, and let them in and change the software, which put all of our phones and all of our profiles in jeopardy. And so this back door that they created wouldn't just stop with iPhones. So think about if he created a back door for this iPhone, what would stop him from having to create a back door for the 75 iPhones that are sitting in the New York District Attorney's office waiting to get unlocked, which is actually happening right now. There's actually 75 iPhones sitting there. And so if he opens up this back door and lets the FBI in, who's to say there are millions of hackers that are extremely proficient around the world, and they could also get into this phone or this software. And if they could get in, anyone could get in, and then all of our information is no longer encrypted and protected. It's now just open to anyone. And so another major problem with data is this man named Edward Snowden. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with who he is or what happened, but Edward Snowden was an NSA agent until 2013, and what he did was he worked with coding and with taking data and seeing what that. So the NSA is the National Security Agency, for those of you who don't know. And so what he found out was that the NSA was actually requiring major tech companies to give their data to the NSA and allow them to track United States citizens. So think of so companies were Yahoo, Verizon, Google, Facebook, and Microsoft, and all those companies would not only take your password, your location, but it would share your patterns, where you go every day, the people you talk to, the things you like, the things you don't like, and would use that to track people. And so that's a little scary to think about the fact that you were basically getting tracked and you had no idea. And so what he did is he released all this information to everyone and said, these are the companies that are not keeping your data safe like they should. And so all these companies lost billions and billions of dollars. And so Apple was one of the few companies that didn't get caught up in this mess because it encrypts their data so the NSA couldn't get it. And so Apple wanted to protect themselves, saying, we've gone through this before once, we're not going to let it happen to us. Because they knew if they'd unencrypted their data and let the FBI in, that they would lose billions of dollars. And so, in conclusion, companies like Apple, based on what we've seen before, shouldn't have to compromise the security of its customers and compromise the security of our own information to aid the government in the maybe of having this phone unlocked and what it could do for the country. Because what really matters when it comes down to it is one phone isn't just one phone when we get into it. One phone could lead to millions of phones that are all unlocked, and then everyone's compromised, basically. Thank you.